in the audience
A lot of times.
screaming.
Yeah. Oh, that was like, what, yeah, I agree with you, yeah. Well, when you walk into that room, if you've got a reputation of not being truthful, you're dead.
Right.
You know, that's why I was asked over the years to represent Abe, and I, 3-4 times, I said I wouldn't do it.
Good?
Yep.
You good? Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Cruz?
Here.
Mr. Unix?
Here. That's the extent of us tonight. All right. We have a conditional use hearing 26-001. I'm going to turn the hearing over to Mr. Pipperotta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to open the public hearing on conditional use hearing CU 26001, which is an application of Dutch Holding Company regarding property at 6945 Weaversville Road, Northampton, PA 18067, obviously located in East Allen Township. This is a formal hearing, and so the applicant will be presenting testimony and exhibits this evening. What I'd like to do is, I do see some people in the audience. Is there anybody in the audience that's here specifically for this matter and believes, other than the applicant, that they may want to comment regarding this application? Anybody in the audience here for that matter? Seeing none. Okay. So with that, prior to starting the hearing, we do have some board exhibits that we have to enter into the record before we have the applicant proceed with their testimony. And if I may, board exhibit number 1 will be the March 27th, 2026 zoning application denial letter from Maggie Werner of Barry Isaac and Associates, Inc., the zoning officer for East Allen Township. Board exhibit number 2 will be the public notice of this matter advertised, indicating that a conditional use hearing would be held at this location at 5344 North Bath Boulevard, Northampton, PA, on May 28, 2026 at 7 p.m. Board exhibit number 3 will be 2 photographs indicating the posting of the property in compliance with the East Allen Township zoning ordinance and also the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. Board exhibit number 4 will be an affidavit of Mr. Green, the township manager, indicating that the property was posted in compliance with the East Allen Township zoning ordinance and the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code on May 21st of 2026. Board exhibit number 5 will be the list of landowners within the requisite distance that's required under the ordinance to receive notice of the hearing in this matter, and a CAM Northampton County buffer search indicating all homeowners or landowners within the required distance to be notified. Board exhibit number 6 will be photographs of the certificates of mailing to all of those landowners that were represented in exhibit number 5. And finally, exhibit number 7 will be a memorandum from the East Allen Township Planning Commission at their hearing on May 6th of 2026. They recommended to the Board of Supervisors that the conditional use application be granted subject to certain conditions that are set forth within that exhibit. Those will be entered into. Any objection to any of the board exhibits, Mr. Attorney Berger?
No objection.
No objection. With that, then, we will turn the hearing over to Attorney Berger. He is here on behalf of the applicant.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dave Berger. I'm an attorney in Norris McLaughlin. I represent the applicant Dutch Holding Company. What I'd like to do for the board this evening is what I'd like to ultimately provide the board an offer of proof. So I would go through the testimony my client would give, and then under oath he would swear and affirm that everything that I've kind of told to you this evening would be his testimony. So it's a way to avoid kind of formal question and answer testimony. So we're here with regards to a mobile home that's on this property in Weaversville Road. The property itself is a multi-family property on the front and the mobile homes to the rear of the property. So the first exhibit that's been provided to you is simply the deed for the property, showing that the applicant this evening is the owner of the property and has the right to be here this evening. The second exhibit I have, Exhibit B, is an overhead of the property. So what you can see from the overhead exhibit is where that red stake is. That is the multi-unit family property. And then to the rear of the property, you can kind of see a white roof. That is the location of the mobile home. And then what we have as Exhibit C is a sketch plan that shows where the existing mobile home is located and where the new mobile home to replace it would be located. It's ultimately on the same footprint. It's not on the same footprint, but it's in the same area. But the footprint is a little bit larger, and that's the reason why we're here this evening. So, long story short, the mobile home that was on the property has been permitted since 1975. When my client purchased the property and expected the mobile home, as you would expect from him, something from 1975, was in somewhat of a severe deteriorated shape. So what he tried to move forward and do is to replace that mobile home with another modern mobile home. Unfortunately, what he found out when doing that is that they do not make mobile homes 12 by 56 feet anymore. The mobile home that he can buy is actually, I want to say, 13.3 feet versus 58 feet. So because the mobile home is extending in size by a little bit more of 1 foot by 2 feet, we're here this evening because to replace a non-conforming use with another non-conforming use, if you increase it, I need to come here this evening for a conditional use approval. So the property itself is approximately 1 acre in size. The surrounding neighborhood itself is mostly residential, so we're continuing that residential use. We're not looking to put a commercial use in there. And I think the best way to go about this going forward is ultimately you have general standards under your ordinance for a conditional use. So the general standards listed under your ordinance are that the use is in conformance with the spirit, purposes, and intent and applicable requirements of the ordinance. It's in conformance with the applicable provision of all other your township ordinances. It's in accordance with the comprehensive plan. It's in conformance with state and federal laws. It's suitable for the particular location and not detrimental to the public welfare. So to go through those in general, one, it is putting this mobile home back is in conformance with the spirit, purposes, and intent of the ordinance. It's a residential use. It's in the suburban residential district. It's in conformance ultimately with the intent of your ordinance. It is also in conformance with all other applicable provisions. Ultimately, this is the non-conforming use. We know when we put this mobile home back there, we still have to go through permitting and everything else, which he intends to do so. With regards to the Township Comprehensive Plan, the Township Comprehensive Plan looks to foster residential uses. We're continuing and fostering that residential use, so we also believe we're in conformance with that as well. With regards to it's suitable for the particular location, it's been approved there. It's been approved there since 1975. We're putting it in the same spot. We understand with regards to the setbacks, because it's a non-conforming setback, the placement of the mobile home is not going to be any more within the setback than it already is. So what I mean by that is the 1 foot by 2 feet is not going to further extend into the setback. It's going to further extend into the existing property. With regards to we also don't believe it's going to be a detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the community, because frankly, because that mobile home is so old, we're looking to replace it with a new, modern, and code-compliant structure that's going to improve the health, safety of the property's occupants and frankly the surrounding community. These modern mobile homes are constructed to current safety standards, which have improved fire resistance and structural integrity. The replacement will also improve the aesthetic appearance of the property. Again, you're going from a 1975 mobile home to one that was built in 2025, 2026. And this property, which is 1 acre, can easily accommodate the proposed replacement without any other adverse impact. I think it's also important to note that the applicant also owns that property to the rear, to the right, so ultimately where that setback is, the client owns the property as well anyway. ultimately, so you're not gonna interfere with that neighboring property owner, because he is the neighboring property owner. And then just to touch on a couple of things from this planning commission memo. So I know there was a couple of concerns. One, with regards to whether or not this property was also completely located within East Allen Township. It is. The GIS makes it a little bit confusing, but this property is in fact all in East Allen Township. We don't need any approvals from neighboring townships. Again, I think I touched on the placement of the mobile homes as comparison to the setbacks. We're not gonna further encroach into the setbacks. If anything, it's gonna go in the same spot, but those extended areas are gonna further extend into the property. With regards to septic capacity, there is a septic system that was permitted, and it is sufficient for the multifamily dwelling that's on the property and the mobile home. But we also understand and acknowledge that any permit we get to put the mobile home there, we're probably gonna have to go through and get that tested as well. That we're willing to do. And then I think lastly, there was a question whether or not that mobile home was removed. I will offer to the board that that mobile home was in fact removed a few months or so before this application, but frankly, it was always with the intent to replace it, and we followed the applications, we followed the permits, so we don't believe we abandoned any intent to abandon that mobile home use. So in light of that, I don't think there's any issues with regards to the existing removal of that mobile home now. Frankly, it deteriorated to the extent that we had to get it removed before we moved forward with this anyway. So with that, I mean, ultimately, my client and we believe we conform with the requirements of the conditional use standard criteria, general criteria. I would offer to the board, I did review the specific criteria that we would have to comply for, and frankly, I don't think this mobile home is compliance with any of those specific criteria. What I mean by that is I don't believe the specific criteria requirement applies to this actual application. So with that, I can certainly have my client swear of everything that I've said here is kind of true and correct, but I can also take any questions that the members of the board might have.
Yeah, why don't we have board members ask questions, and then once that's completed, you can call your client, identify your client, and have him indicate that he agrees with the testimony and adopts it as his.
Board have questions?
Yes, I see, it looks like it's just a little bit bigger. Is
Yeah.
the height also the same? I know the footprint is a little bit bigger, but is the height the same as the old mobile home, as the new mobile home?
It is the same.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't listed, so I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask it.
What I see it here, it's what, 1.3 feet, I think, and 2 feet?
Correct.
Is it different?
On the one side it's 1.3 and the other one is 2.
So I think so if you look at it, the shaded one is the existing mobile home, but there's an outline of there's another outline on top of it. That outline on top of it would be the footprint of the new mobile home.
I have no other questions.
Any other questions by board members?
I don't have
I don't
any.
believe there are, but any other questions from the audience? All right, Attorney Berger, if you just have your client briefly testify, that'd be great.
Sure, thank you.
Just has to be sworn in
Sure.
first. Can you state and spell your first and last name?
Manny, M-A-N-N-Y.
I'm sorry?
Manny, M-A-N-N-Y. Last name McCool, M-A-K-H-O-U-L.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. McCool, just quickly for the board, can you just state your position in relationship to the applicant?
I'm the managing member.
Okay. And you're authorized to testify on behalf of the applicant?
That is correct.
Okay. Did you hear everything that I testified to this evening?
Yes.
Okay. Is everything that I provided and advised the board true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, it is.
Okay. If you would have had the opportunity to answer any questions or provide any testimony, would you have provided any different answers than what I put forward?
No,
Would you adopt my testimony as your own?
I do.
That
Yeah.
would be sufficient. At this point, and I think your three exhibits are moved into evidence.
Yes, correct. I would
Your
ask those to be
three-
moved in.
Three exhibits that you submitted this evening. Are there any other further comments before we close the hearing? All right, so we will close the public hearing on this matter, and the board will now deliberate regarding its decision. Section 26 of our ordinance lays out the general criteria for a conditional use application, as Attorney Berger indicated, and I looked at Section 26. I don't see any specific criteria which would apply to this application. The zoning officer's denial letter references a lawful pre-existing non-conforming use because a mobile home is permitted in the suburban residential zoning district. However, because I guess there's other units on the property, it was considered non-conforming in that regard. And so our only consideration this evening, since there are no specific criteria, would be the general criteria that Attorney Berger addressed in his presentation. And if any motion would be made by any board member in favor of the application, I would suggest that it would also adopt the Planning Commission recommendation that had conditions regarding having the septic system reviewed as well.
Okay.
And any other conditions that the board members may wish to.
How can you read my notes from way down? Literally, you were almost verbatim taking my notes.
You're looking for a motion, correct?
Yes, we're looking for a motion to
Grant or deny?
grant or deny the conditional use hearing for 26001.
So I'll make that motion to grant the waiver for the conditional use with the property boundaries being set, the setbacks, and a septic system review make sure it's adequate. And I believe that actually says exactly what.
That's exactly what the Planning Commission recommendation
Thank you.
suggests.
Okay. Motion was made by Chris, seconded by Lou. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Eubanks?
Yes, motion passed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, too.
Is that it for the record?
It is.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I don't believe, Brett, we need the court stenographer anything further, correct?
No, I believe we're good.
Thank
You
you.
get to have an early evening this night, since she was out late last night with the data centers.
Yeah, I did Upper Mackenzie last night.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
It was a little dramatic.
She's happy to get out of here
I would
tonight.
think so.
I think more people turned out for that than they do on any election day.
Oh my gosh.
I'm seriously,
Yeah, I believe it.
they were wrapped around the township building. And they definitely all weren't in, I mean, with like
Yeah.
bombarded fire code.
Wow. Upper Macungie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they conclude it, or was it continued?
So apparently, this was the first one that I did, but apparently there was a continuance asked for in November. Then there was a continuance asked for in February for last night. And then council showed up an hour late. And he literally got booed, like, really heavily when he walked in, very heavily.
Yeah, we're used to it.
No, this was like, I've never seen anything like it, actually. It was like,
They
you
were
know, you were
like
like
that.
at a high school sports team, it was like that. It was like that. And,
And the referee made a bad
People are getting
call.
crazy over it.
yeah, and people, like, they were missing technical fouls and shit, but, so that happened, and they, just before he walked in, they were going through, like, council was going through and putting everything on the record, like, you know, obviously, we're not going forward, so we're gonna deny the continuance, there's nobody here to voice, you know, anything differently, and we were like this far from, like, shut down. He literally walks in the door, council walks in, it was so dramatic. That's when, like, the crowd, like, roared. So then we had to go back, and actually so it was Council for Air Products, they decided they didn't want to open the hearing, they asked for another continuance. So the crowd was, like, going crazy. And council asked, when are you looking for next month? And he's like, no, probably like October. They're like, October! And so it came to the point, like, council explained to the board, like, if you grant a continuance, because apparently zoning has changed. Like, that use is no longer permitted, but it was in November when they filed. So he's like, so you could get this backlash. But also, if it's 3 continuances, how many times? Like, that's setting up a precedent for anybody to keep coming in here and asking for continuances. And the board denied the continuance. And I'm sure it doesn't end there.
No, it's.
Oh,
Yeah.
But they said that they do not want to pursue making a record at this point, I guess. So, right, once you open the record, then you're open to public, right, so I think that's what it is. I don't know if they don't have the
Well,
ducks
that's
in
an
a row or what.
interesting, thank you. Interesting update on what happened.
Yeah.
okay. Now, we have a set of minutes from May 14th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
As sent.
I'll second.
Okay, motion was made by Chris, seconded by Lou to approve May 14th, 2026 minutes. Corrections, additions, roll call?
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Eubanks?
Yes, motion passed. We have a public comment period dealing with agenda items. Any public comment dealing with agenda? Note that it was asked. Supervisors business, we give that to Brent.
All right, item number 8, under Supervisors Business, we have a recommendation to approve Planning Commission bylaws. Over the past several months, the Planning Commission has felt it be advantageous to have updated bylaws. We were able to find bylaws that were adopted back in the 1990s. Some of the provisions are no longer applicable, but they want to have something that as they get members, they can say, here's our responsibilities as a commission. Nothing would bind the board to the bylaws. You ultimately have the right to say yay or nay. It's just basically a procedure for them of, this is how we prefer to run the commission, so that if they would get a new member, they can say, here's basically our how-to guide on how we function, how our agenda's set up, the attendance requirements that they have, if you're not gonna be attending, notifying the chairperson, just common stuff that we would see regardless. So they just wanted to have it written down as a policy. They're trying to be more formal and do due diligence with items before their board. So our recommendation is that there are a few typos that we have to amend, but otherwise the substance in the document is fine. Our recommendation is for you guys to grant a motion to approve them and have those signed.
I just have one question for my own knowledge. What would the planning commission apply for grants for?
So there's nothing that they would really apply for, but the MPC does give them the powers to apply for grants. But there's nothing that I've ever seen that they would apply for other than assistance with DCED, but they cannot bind or enter the township into a contract. So it's very broad because it's meant for planning agencies like the county planning agency, like the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, or some of the others that are more regional, that they're acting as a department instead of a true commission under our board. So it's one of the provisions of the MPC that was brought in, but it's not really applicable.
So it don't bind up?
No, it would not bind us. They cannot commit the board into anything. They can't go out and hire staff. They can't do anything financially without the board's approval. They're an advisory board to the Board of Supervisors, and they provide a recommendation. And they cannot do anything beyond that, unless you want them to be a policy-making board, which you could do, but most communities do not do that. It's not necessary.
You answered my question, thank you.
Okay, so do we feel comfortable making a motion to approve?
Do you, just throwing this out there, do you think we should let the other two board members look at that before we approve it, or?
It can be tabled if you want.
It's waited this long.
I'm just trying to be fair.
I
to
didn't
them.
mean that as funny, I just meant it,
Right.
it came out funny though, didn't it? Okay. Yeah, next meeting.
Sounds good. We'll move it to the next meeting. All right, the next item we have is a recommendation to approve the Township Line Road Reconstruction Project. 2025, we entered into an intermunicipal agreement with Lower Nazareth to reconstruct Township Line from the intersection of Silvercrest Road to the actual East Allen Township boundary with Lower Nazareth. Lower Nazareth was the head grant applicant for two grants, well, one grant. They were actually awarded $1.25 million. The bids have now come in at $1,168,981.50 to Haynes and Kibblehouse Group Incorporated, or H&K Group. So we are making the recommendation that the bids be approved, subject to confirmation and the staff possibly amending the agreements to include provisions for insurance coverages, inspections, and change orders. Now, what I will say is I did talk with the township manager today for Lower Nazareth, Lori Stoffer, and their engineer will be requiring as part of their bid documents, insurance coverages for East Allen and our contractors such as Hanover Engineering for the work. So that is already covered, so I don't feel it needs to be changed. The other part we discussed was how we're handling change orders. And right now, they have a policy that all their change orders would have to be approved by their board prior to being approved at all. So it would basically stop construction, which is fine, because the road's gonna close anyway. So how we would handle that is, as soon as a change order is done, our staff, our engineer would be able to work with their engineer to verify that it's an actual correct change order, work out the quantities, and then we would both vote on it as individual municipalities and then approve it. So I think we're fine with that.
Yeah.
And we
How often
also
do they
have,
meet?
what?
How often do they meet?
They meet
Twice a month.
Tuesday, twice a month. It's Tuesday, we meet Thursday, so they actually meet before us. So I don't foresee us having any change orders. We did a lot of contingencies on this, and we also have additional funding with the grant because we were awarded 1.25 million. So anything that comes out is coming out of that anyway. But there is a provision in the existing agreement that I was able to find, and I think it satisfies the administration of it. It just, we need clarification on how the project will be actually administered. So it's item number 4 under their agreement, and it says the administration of construction project shall be administered by Lower Nazareth Township as the grantee. The East Allen Township engineer shall be responsible for the inspection of the construction as it pertains to the portion of road in East Allen Township. But there's other sections that give us the right of, we basically have equal say in anything that happens, which I'm comfortable with. So if there's no questions, it's recommended that you would make a motion to accept the H&K, authorize the staff to send a letter to Lower Nazareth, and if we have to, give us permission to amend that agreement and come back to you for approval.
So that's what you recommended the motion be?
Correct.
And for the amount of what? $1,168,981.50?
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Chris, seconded by Lou. Everybody fully understand, everybody got it, questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Unick?
Yes, motion passes.
All right, if there's nothing else on that, the last item we have is a discussion on zoning ordinance updates. So we pretty much are at the final stretch of the zoning ordinance itself. And we need a clarification from the board, because there's some provisions that may be advantageous to include in the ordinance or may not be, depending on how the board feels. So one of those things is currently our lot size on probably 80%, 90% of the township is 1 acre. That's an ideal lot size because it's an even number, it's not hard. In practicalness in East Allen Township, between karst features, natural features and other things, you will probably never see a true 1 acre lot because it's just not possible when you put an on-lot septic system and an on-lot well. And even in where we have subdivisions, we still wind up with 2 acre lots. So what we're looking at doing is proposing increasing that lot size from 1 acre to either 1.25 acres, 1.5 acres, 2 acres. We currently have 1 acre in the agricultural rural residential. We have 3 acre in the conservation district. The suburban residential is a little bit unique, but it's basically 1 acre as well. So what we're recommending is that you increase it. Now with that, there is some concerns because of our land preservation efforts would take away the density of a tract of land, because they would not, instead of getting 1 acre, they would get 1.5 acres or 2 acres. So one of the solutions we thought of to offset that was offer a balance of what they call a conservation subdivision. So it's a tool where there's usually a blending, you have an increase of density, but there's some portion of the lot that is conserved. So whether that's 50% or 40%, there's something that gets conserved with it. I don't believe most individuals would actually use it as a tool for developing their tract, but it allows on an appraisal the added value that they would potentially lose from the current zoning to the future zoning if we would increase it. Just so that they're not facing that burden of, I've kept this as an investment, I've banked on this for a while, when I need it, when I'm either retiring or something comes up or I need to sell a tract, I want to be able to do this. So we're just looking at A, are you favorable in increasing it in some bit from 1 acre? And B, if you are looking at on the higher end of that scale, would you want to learn more about or incorporate conservation subdivisions as a tool? You can keep it at 1 acre now, but you're not gonna get 1 acre lots.
I thought it was phrased 1 acre usable.
Well, so we have a lot area that you have to exclude certain features, so that
Right.
cuts it out, because you have to take out your right of way. But it basically, you have to wind up with 1 acre usable, but you're getting a larger acre because you have 1.25 or 1.1.
Well, and to that point, Roger, if we don't change the wording and you would just change the lot size, you would still be then excluding certain areas to achieve the larger lot size as well. So a 2 acre lot might take 2.5 in the reality, based upon netting out easements, right of way, whatever. So it would be the same concept unless that change is carried through as well.
I believe most communities that when we were looking, they're about 1.5 acres is what we're seeing as a typical, with on-lot water and sewer. If we had public water and sewer, you could look at having a lower lot size, but obviously we know there's parts of the township that we have 1/3 of an acre or 1/4 of an acre or 1/2 an acre, and they don't have suitable replacement areas for a septic system in the event that there's an issue. And then we get into the whole impervious coverage of now we're going to the maximum impervious coverage, and they want a pool, they want a shed, they want a garage, they want a large driveway, they want the carport off the side, and they're at their max. So it doesn't help that, but it allows the essential things they need, stormwater management facilities, water and sewer disposal, that they can provide on the lot without having an impact in the future.
And along those lines also, as far as the conservation subdivision planning, we haven't seen it utilized in the township, even though it's already something that's built into our ordinance, and typically you don't see it used effectively in rural communities because of the lack of public water and sewer. So even under that scenario, it's difficult for them to be able to incorporate that type of subdivision layout just because of that. You end up with either having the septic systems or the wells on the common area or on the conserved area. And in a case like our situation, if they would put the septic systems in the common area, which is supposed to be, the conservation area, you might be ripping down trees or arbitrarily impeding the full use of that area that was supposed to be part of the conservation area. So again, it's a tool, but it's not typically well implemented in rural communities.
But it would work.
It could work.
Brent?
It depends on how
One
you-
of the requirements that have public utilities to do the conservation easement?
So I believe they would have to share, they could do it on lot as a centralized collection system or do something of that nature, which is still gonna be very difficult
Yeah.
to accommodate. It really looks at the purpose of why you're allowing it and if it's actually functional. I don't know of any conservation subdivisions in the Lehigh Valley. I don't think it's a common thing. Toll Brothers, the the Regency at Creekside Meadows, that was kind of pitched as a conservation subdivision, but it's really not. They just have some open space that swales. But this would be more of a substantial dedication of
We
land.
submitted one in Lower Nazareth, but it was because of a portion of the property had public water and sewer available to it. And
Yeah.
that's why it worked at that location.
And generally, public water is available in the township except for the northern half. It's really the public sewer that, we don't have a plant. We are within areas that the capacity is not there for conveyance to Northampton Borough, to Catasauqua Borough, to the city of Bethlehem, and just not feasible to do it.
This is the same thing they used to call clustering.
Correct,
Right.
it's clustering.
Alright.
Yeah,
So this has been around for 30 years.
correct, and it's in our current ordinance, but you probably didn't see anything with it because you allow 1 acre minimum, so if I can get 1 acre, why would I do a cluster? Because I'm getting the same density. It's really, you only do the conservation subdivision if you have an increased lot size that you wanna have some housing, but you don't wanna have it all over. And you can do it in an overlay that it's on certain tracks. It could have a minimum lot size, like we did with Toll Brothers, with the age qualified zoning. There's different tools. I'm just kind of looking at that 100-mile view above head of this is what we're looking at, not. But we're at the point where we really need some feedback so that we can make sure that the final draft is what we think the vision is. Now, as a goal, I mean, he is correct, the River Central Comprehensive Plan does promote housing, because housing obviously is an issue that's facing the country and affordability, but it's not an issue that is East Allen's alone, and the intent of River Central in the regional planning is to really push developments into the boroughs or the urbanized areas of the communities that serve River Central, and really promote preservation or open space conservation in the rural areas, which we're the only rural community in that plan. So it's Northampton Borough, North Caddy, Hanover, Lehigh. So we're fortunate that we don't have to provide high density. There's a lot of uses out there, boarding houses and adult uses and treatment centers and some things that would not be desirable that we have planned for, being proactive over the years, that we now don't have to worry about because other communities have taken on those land uses.
Question for Jim, maybe he can answer it. Which, in your opinion, would this work better with, 1.5 or 2 acre?
Well, again, based upon our township and not having the public infrastructure for public water and sewer, and specifically the sewer, what we've seen predominantly is 1 acre stretches the limits and really hasn't been effective for most developers. Brett mentioned earlier, we're seeing a lot of subdivisions that the average lot size, if you would look at it, is probably closer to the 1.5. In truly poor soil conditions, the 2 would be more prevalent, but I would say 1.5 is something that is relatively suited to what we've seen as an example of what we've experienced in the township over the past several years.
Thank you.
Board's wishes?
Well, I mean, I sit doing this with them, and I know we've had a lot of problems with the acreage, the 1 acre lots. I was leaning myself more towards what Brent said, with the 1.5 instead of the 2. My concern was the property value. I didn't want it to decrease, and the way it was explained to me is that it won't with this. They'll still get a higher benefit out of it for that property for the farmers, basically. We're a farmland agriculture area. That's why I was looking at it that way. I think it kind of solves both problems and it still helps the farmers. I may be wrong, I'm not a farmer. I'm hoping it does. That's how I looked at it.
Only if you're selling.
Only for selling, correct, correct. And I mean, that's, when we had the round tables way back for River Central, that was the main concern. So, that's how I looked at it.
Okay.
I think the 2 acres would devalue the land a lot, more so than the 1.5 acres. And 1.25 is not that much of a movement, so why go from 1 to 1.25? I don't think that'd be much of a movement.
Doesn't seem like a lot. So. All right, so what do we,
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
I just want, first of all, I want to make sure I understand. We're talking about increasing the minimum lot size. Would that, and if so, how would that affect preservation? Because if you preserve your land, you're still allowed to cut out small plots And if I remember correctly from our meetings with Northampton, those were 1 acre plots. Would that therefore cause us to change the work that's going on with the preservation?
So the.
You mean
yeah.
Northampton County?
Two different situations. Go ahead.
That's-
I'm just saying, when they talked about it.
The
and
state program is 2 acres, you're allowed to cut
Yeah.
off.
Northampton's.
No,
Northampton County.
yeah.
What about
So-
the one that we're having written right now?
So there's two separate issues. So the first is the minimum lot size with exclusion if you're creating a lot. So certain programs allow you to have up to 2 acres, some allow larger, some allow smaller. It just depends on the funding mechanism. The townships could be whatever exclusion area we would want, as long as it's a viable property for conservation. So that doesn't restrict them in the future from saying, okay, I want 5 acres for the future that I can subdivide off, and that's not gonna be part of my easement purchase. But the other part, and where the concern is, if I came in today and I had 100 acres and I can do 1 acre lots, I get 100 lots. If you make it 2 acres, I get 50 lots. So when you're doing your appraisal of the property, the appraiser's valuing that per acre cost or whatever the lot is against what could be developed to come up with the development rights. What we would buy the difference for the land, because we're not doing an outright purchase on the land, so we're only buying those development rights. So by increasing the lot size, we could potentially impact the development rights to be bought by lowering the actual value of the lot today, what it is. Does that make sense? Does that?
Yes, it does, but it doesn't answer my question. When it's being, our,
Two different items.
Yeah, so our
Right, so
program.
two different items, and that's happened, okay? It happens in a lot of rural communities like Lower Mount Bethel Township and other townships like that, where the lot size differentiates from the lot, for the township standpoint, differentiates from the lot size that is required to be in compliance with the preservation regulations of the county. And I've had situations where we, they do a subdivision plan, they shade out the one area, you approve this lot this year, you have to wait that full 12 months under the county's program, you do the second lot the next year. So to answer your question, it can be accomplished. It's a little bit more, a little bit more work that we have to do, not from a cost standpoint, but it can be done. So it does, the bottom line is it doesn't impact anybody's ability to put it in preservation, okay? Now, some may go in year 1 and some may go in year 2 so that you comply with those minimum acreage requirements, but it can still be done, and the county recognizes that because it happens a lot in the northern tier townships, northeastern in our county, and Northampton County works with them and then allows them to do the 1 year, and then they can record the plan for the second lot or the next acre the following year.
okay.
Or they can preserve
So
different lots at different times.
As long as they meet
By-
the minimum regulations.
by what we're proposing, even if we stayed at 1 acre, in the conservation zoning district, we have 3 acre minimums. Most county exclusion areas are 2, which
That is
leads
correct.
to lots that can't be developed under the current ordinance. So we're trying to at least rectify the hardship and deal with it in that aspect where somebody can actually continue to subdivide that off in the event they have it.
You're right,
So
but
by
it's
increasing
more of an issue in that scenario that you just
Correct.
gave than the scenario I gave.
Correct. We don't see it as an issue of, I want to do something in the future, I don't know what size, how's this going to impact, because it's not really affecting the value of the land. Where it affects it is when I'm looking at putting in an application and I have this dollar amount in my head that I think my value's worth. You go out and do an appraisal and disappoint me because I'm nowhere near what I thought, and now because we've increased the lot size, we're even lower than what it would have been had the existing zoning been in place. So it's just something to be cognizant of, that is an issue that we do face with it. And that was one of the things that made the program, that the open space program from the county, when buying the Spangler tract, was attractive because they had a 1 acre minimum and they could come up with the lot sizes and what they came for the per acre value for the outright purchase of the land. And that's why the siblings were able then to decide, okay, this is good and we're gonna sell it.
So basically, there is nothing we need to do with farmland preservation to tweak everything works. the way
Nothing
it
on
is.
farmland for this, it would just be cognizant of these lot sizes do impact the program when we create exclusion zones on the survey.
And that number is gonna be lowered to the farmer.
Right.
Correct.
Yes. Now, how much, I don't know what that would do, but When you take the developable price,
Right, because you're shrinking.
it's gonna shrink that number.
Now, if they're looking at selling the property completely and it's an outright acquisition, it's kind of moot because you're paying the per acre price, you're not paying that development price. But a lot of times they're not looking to sell it, they're looking to preserve it so that they can continue their legacy or whatever they're doing on the farm and pass it to another generation or get the influx for what they need to continue to expand their operations.
Because I don't know if it's safe to say, you know, if we increase the minimum lot size by 50%, does that, I don't know how much that's going to lower the appraisal value. I
The
don't,
farmland.
yeah.
Well, yeah, because the appraisal always has to be the highest and best use, so the appraiser will look at the, you know, the existing zoning ordinance and zoning map at that time, and if it's 1.5 acre versus 1 acre, they will generally take 25 to 30% out as the developable area, meaning improvements, and then determine how many lots realistically one could have. And so, obviously, your higher lot size will reduce the number of lots that you have.
Correct.
And so it'll impact you or others who are looking to sell your, you know, if you're ever looking to sell your tract in that regard. I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying that's how it would affect you, because I see that quite often in my practice.
But wouldn't each lot be worth more if it's
Well,
more
you
land?
raise a good point. I mean, there's some appraisers that'll tell you that an additional half acre for each lot really doesn't increase the value that much, but I'm not an appraiser, and you make a very good, you know, it's a very good comment. I just don't know what the answer is.
So,
I'd like to know the answer to that.
That's kind of important.
I think the problem that you have, because going through appraisals on a potential acquisition, you're gonna have differing opinions on what the actual value is and what can be truly developed, because there's some that can look at it and say, okay, clusters is an option, we're not vetting that clusters can't be done, but it is an option as that best use, or this is East Allen Township, that's never gonna happen, and we're gonna go with what we go with. It really is.
Conservation easements, Brent.
So,
I mean, where the township would not have to pay anything more than the, you know, the easement value versus the outright.
and I think it's very similar with it of coming up with that.
so am I hearing this right? So if I'm a farmer and I want to sell my 100 acres outright to you for development, it's not going to affect the price there. It'll affect the price when you put it in farmland preservation. And I think it's going to affect it both
That's an
ways.
assumption.
Well, it will affect for development.
Correct.
It'll probably have a more negative approach to the development sale because I have bigger lot sizes, therefore I've increased infrastructure costs that I no longer want to.
And less lots,
Do.
and less lots to recover my income.
Correct.
So I can tell you unequivocally it'll have an impact that way. I don't know how negative it will be, but clearly, because, and I'm just saying this, you know, I represent a lot of builders and developers, okay? And the first thing they're doing is they're doing their analysis, they're hiring Jim to say, do me a sketch under the current ordinance and tell me how many units I can net out of this, using the methodology and the formula that's in the ordinance, right? So you do that, and that's what your offer to the landowner is based on what your density is gonna be. And then, if you have bigger lots, you obviously have more sidewalks, you have more curbing, and less density. Whether that's good or bad, that's for you to decide, but clearly it would have an impact.
But that's where there's really a stark, you're not really doing it for the developer's benefit if you're doing this. You're doing it because of the farmer and that value of the hypothetical of the conservation easement or the development rights of the property. It's not gonna affect outright purchase, but I don't think outright purchase is what a lot of farmers are looking at based on the roundtables and the feedback we had over the years getting to this point with the open space.
They're not looking for the actual cash, but they're looking for the highest amount they can to
Correct.
maximize their preservation dollars.
Correct.
Correct.
So is there a way that we can the preservation have a different standard than if we're gonna preserve it, keep it an acre?
We can't do that.
We can't do that?
Well, you would have to take every potential hypothetical property on the map behind you that would be high value,
Yep.
and then make that one zoning district, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
everything
forget
else
that.
would be everything
I know what
else.
we're going through already, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, any increase in size potentially limits how much development you can put there. So, again, we can't quantify it exactly because typically the process isn't done exactly. I'll give you a perfect example. Sunny Slope Farm started out with probably 25 to 30% higher number of lots when they originally laid it out based upon our ordinance. And as they did septic testing and ran into karst features and everything else, they just kept losing lots and adjusting lot lines to try to take advantage of where they could get suitable testing and things. And in the end, they probably lost at least, I would say, at least 20 lots. So by starting out higher, you automatically don't have the perceived value there. It may become what the reality is in the end, but you're already starting out with that limitation, so to speak.
Well, and the other issue we see, and there's really a Mason-Dixon line, a division line of 329 south and 329 north when it comes to karst features. And that's one of the detriments that Sunny Slope hit when they were developing that. They came up with this sketch plan of lots that could work, and then they went out and didn't do sewage testing, submitted plans, and then started doing sewage testing, saying, oh, we have a sinkhole where our proposed drain field is, that's not gonna work, well, we can't fit the house, we can't fit this, and then we have to change boundaries to make it work. But that's the developer's job to figure that out and deal with it, not ours. I mean, going up in a small incremental to like an acre and a half, it's not gonna have a major impact on somebody that's subdividing a lot off for their child. It's not gonna have an impact on farmland preservation for an exclusion lot. It's a more reasonable size based on what people want on their property and looking at. But it does come with some complications of, we typically require curbing and sidewalks. Well, maybe you're not gonna require sidewalks if you have an acre and a half, because the frontage can get quite lengthy to maintain that sidewalk. So but that's not really the discussion I wanna get into. It's really, are you generally okay with looking at increasing the minimum size? And then as a tool, a separate issue, do we wanna look at conservation subdivisions and see if that would benefit any concerns for development rights or conservation easements?
We're using Sunny Slope as an example. We have minimum size of 1 acre, right? Where did that system go wrong?
Well, the system didn't go wrong.
Well, then why are we changing?
Again, it's not that the system went wrong. It's just a matter of whether or not the board is comfortable with going with the lessened lot size, or if you feel it's appropriate, again, rural character, knowing our soils and limitations, you know, it's not something that needs to be changed. It's just something that we wanted to make sure that the board is comfortable with. It's been a discussion item when we've had the various representatives from the community come in. We've seen, you know, a misunderstanding that they thought everybody was changing everything to 2 acres, and there was concerns about that and things. We just want to make sure that as we go forward with the River Central update, that we're addressing, you know, what the board sees as appropriate for the township.
So right now in front of you, everything that's this beige color, or marked C, is a 3 acre minimum. Everything that's the light green is 1 acre. Everything that's the lime green is actually 10 acre for a minimum lot size. And then we have pockets of land that SR, the blue, is 1 acre without public water and sewer. But I believe it goes up to a 1/4 acre with both.
Down to a quarter.
Down.
Lot size argument, because there's not enough land to.
I just don't,
Right.
I don't see the benefit. Yes.
I might be oversimplifying, or it might just be my math mind working, but the minimum is 1 acre right now. Would it, and if a 1 acre doesn't work, which is what I think is what the discussion is, because isn't that the developer's problem then? Like, that's what I'm
Exactly.
saying? And therefore, if he has to increase it by 1/4 of an acre, so be it.
That's what I said about Sunny Slope Farm.
Right.
Right.
They came in with 20 extra lots,
Right,
they had to absorb them, it's
They
not
had to
our
deal with
problem.
it.
It's
Yeah.
not the previous farmer's problem,
right.
it's not,
It's not really solving a developer's problem, it's more solving just the dynamics of creating a lot that's sustainable for one single family, making money on it for anybody, that we don't have to grant an isolation distance waiver for a well within a septic system or a septic system within a well. That they have a suitable replacement area, that we're not worried about trying to find scrounging land, based on what we're seeing.
But that's all in the ordinance. If they can't do it, it's not our problem. That's all, what you listed is all in the ordinance already.
So it is. Yeah,
That's true.
This falls into the, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
Unless the board wants
To break it.
to break it.
All right, I'm ready to move on. Personally.
I'm good with the acre too. I mean, I was looking at it the other way, where we're having all the complaints that they don't have enough room on an acre. And that was the whole River Central, discussion was for that reason. Not enough room on an acre anymore for a house. My concern was from day one, and I know Brent will know that, was the concern about the value for the farmers. Period. And if we believe the 1 acre will work, I have no problem with that.
I mean, the houses they're building on 1 acre lots are definitely bigger than they were 20 years ago. But,
You're right, but it is a developer's problem.
mhm.
But Sunny Slope, if you look at those lots, they ain't putting much on there with a sand mound.
No, but that's because they put the sand out of a stupid place.
Well, again, that's where you're getting into,
Right.
they don't have
They
a
didn't have any
choice.
choice.
They had to put it where they could.
That's what, yeah.
Right.
So, and I agree, I mean, but that's no here, but that's
Right.
their problem. And that's how we were looking at it as a board, doing this, because that was the #1 complaint, not enough room to put what you
well,
want.
I think it's that, but I think it's typically 1 acre in a rural community is a higher density than what you typically see. You're not seeing 1 acre as a normal lot size. So that's really the crux of it. You don't have to provide 1 acre, you can go higher if you want, if you're concerned about development coming in, but then it offsets. So it's basically a this or that. If you're fine with the current, that's perfectly fine too. But it was more, you don't have to have a 1 acre, which is typically a higher density yield for a developer.
So I guess the direction is then leave it go as it's not broke.
Yeah, if that,
That's my opinion. You voice your opinion,
I think we
feel
leave
free.
well enough alone, and if there's issues, it's on the developer to overcome whatever,
Right.
you know, limitations that land does for draining, et cetera.
Agreed?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I told you why I was looking at it.
No, that's fine.
so then the other component we had was when one of the warehouses, the first one at Airport Road, Lot 1 came in, as part of the conditional use, there was some concerns over the historical sites within the proximity of it. The question is, do we want to incorporate some sort of requirement that when somebody comes in for land development, they have to go through a certificate of appropriateness for certain commercial uses that may be intensive to those historical sites? Do we want to consider those regulations for zoning, or do we want to do a standalone, or are we not our issue of dealing with? It would not be that we're dictating what they have to build, we wouldn't come up with standards, but it would be something that whether it's an advisory board or the board of supervisors, you would deem that it doesn't have an impact on a site. And you could pick how you evaluate the sites by types, if you just want to do historic homes. I mean, obviously, if it's a site that had a historical feature on it and it's no longer there, I don't think it's probably appropriate to have them go through a design of it. But the brick facade on the front of that current building that's very minimal was what they came up with as a solution. I don't think that was the intent of going out and making sure there's not an impact, but there are things that some communities have done with zoning or a standalone ordinance to protect those sites.
I think this is, once again, because we're on this board, I think this is something we could really look at, because it does protect those historic houses, and that's what we're all pushing right now in this township. And we have a lot, I think we have on that list. I think we had 32 that we know of right now. So I think this is a good thing, to protect those historic sites. We don't have to be so intense where, you know, we're regulating them to do what they want, but I think it still should come in front of the board or whoever we pick to look at what's going in there and how it benefits that site or it don't benefit that site.
I totally agree in that case, yes.
So the question is, if you want it, do you want it in zoning, do you want it in a standalone, or do you want specific uses that,
Oh, I don't think it's a legal thing, but I mean, I think what you're talking about is something that a lot of municipalities have in a standalone ordinance. And, you know, they have a separate board that does the architectural review. Not that
Yes,
this board
certainly,
could not do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Certainly can appoint the board of supervisors to do it, but I think it's something you may want to do outside of the zoning ordinance, Brent.
Yeah, there's some ordinances that I've seen come out in other regions across
Yeah.
the state that are doing it, not in the valley.
I mean, Upper Salkin's ordinance, for instance, has tremendous architectural controls, but not necessarily over historic properties.
Correct. They're getting into
They're
the
getting
characteristics
into
of the
wanting to look at
development,
everything.
which,
Maybe when that comes in, they want to look at the, you know, and
Which-
whether that's legal or not is questionable, but they have it in their ordinance. But
Yeah.
That's not for historical buildings.
correct, and we're not looking at that. Now, there are some uses that we've identified that have to come in for use review as a conditional use. They have to present some sort of architectural rendering.
Well, if you recall also, when we looked at the mixed residential commercial overlay that was being looked at for the area at the intersection of Hanoverville and Airport Road, that has specific, I'll say, architectural components to it that are supposed to be considered. And if you recall, when we had a situation where we were ready for a conditional approval, the developer actually asked the board to downplay some of those architectural requirements because they felt that they couldn't make the project viable with some of the requirements at that time. And that was several years ago.
That's true, but we are looking to preserve and protect these places, and that's what the community wanted. I mean,
I mean, the history of the valley is just disappearing.
Yeah.
I think with most of the, like the city.
Yeah, a lot of the
stuff,
cities have.
They do a separate ordinance, they have a separate board that does the review of it. They're only recommending bodies, the council, which
Correct.
would be our board of supervisors, makes the final determination, but it goes through the historical review board first for a recommendation to the legislative body to determine whether or not you want to accept that recommendation. But it is by separate ordinance, a separate review board instead of the planning commission. It's a historical review board. Who does it? They make a recommendation to the legislative body on the appearance or on the architectural value and exterior materials and that type of thing. I don't know if that's getting
And
too complicated. for what
we
you-
have
No.
that.
Couldn't we
We
use,
have that on the books.
So, we only have it on a few conditional uses currently that has to do that. It does not apply to any use, and we're not looking at all commercial, non-residential uses have to do this. It's more of those that have an impact, such as warehousing, truck terminals, gas stations, colleges, things where you would customarily have a big impact that it's not a 4,000 square foot store or garage or something of that nature.
Gotcha.
would the advisory board be able to be volunteers that we have on both the Historic Society and the Farmland Preservation Board now? I mean, they put a
So
lot
they,
of time and effort into
yeah,
this.
they could be, they have to be residents, and then I believe that there's some sort of code requirements that they would have to meet.
They have to be a resident.
I believe they have to be a resident.
Is there any way that we could, that anonymous, because most of our people on the Historic Society are not residents.
I think it almost,
Has to be?
I think it should be.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that they couldn't participate in the process, but they wouldn't be able to be a voting member to make a recommendation.
Understood.
That we have skin in the game.
All right,
Yeah.
but actually, right now, at this point, we're just talking,
Conceptually.
so,
And that's, if there is interest in it, I believe we're looking standalone, so we really don't need to go into the details.
right.
That can be put at another workshop meeting.
I'm good with it.
Standalone.
Yep.
Standalone.
Okay. Is there anything else zoning-wise that we talked about with the board?
I know, you know, the lot size was the big one that we wanted to talk about. Jim, can you remember?
The other one was the rural resource protection, but we're not getting into that because we already do the lot areas all we're looking at doing is, in our map, there's gonna be a rural resource protection area that does not require the township, if we require public utilities, to expand beyond where it's already provided in the township. The township can choose to support it, but it's the developer's cost and issue to result in that. But we're no way making, by allowing a land use, we're not allowing them to challenge us that, well, you've provided this use, but you don't give me the utilities, therefore you now have to be forced to give us the utilities. So what a lot of places have seen, and we would be particularly challenged with it because of the constraints for public sewer, we provide a lot of uses that require public sewer. Well, because they're required by ordinance, but there's nothing that would alleviate that requirement, such as a rural resource protection under the municipality's planning code, they could argue to DEP and whatever plant they're at, and not force a consent decree, but force other mechanisms to have the township look at its sewage plans and provide for those facilities. In talking with representatives from the department, who probably are now retired and not there anymore, the Department of Environmental Protection standpoint is, it is not our prerogative if a township requires sewer but you don't provide it, but you thought you could get away with not providing it, to say, oh, well, the township doesn't have to do it. If you require use to have a public utility, we are gonna make you provide the public utility, because land use controls are, where do you want stuff? If you don't want it, find a way to not put it there, which is what we've pretty much done in most of our land uses. They're generally in areas where we have public utilities. There may be a few that are not, but
Well, in a few of those, we thought there would be more availability for public utilities than there seems to be.
correct. I mean, there's also the political climate of boards and development and other things changes and evolves constantly. So what is happening today will very well be different than what we're talking about in 5 years. I mean, I don't think anybody thought of the FedEx development with Rockefeller, or the Jandal Watson Group coming in and doing a major industrial park. I don't think anybody thought of Willowbrook Farms being developed into apartments. I don't think anybody thought of Toll Brothers coming in and building an age-qualified development in East Allen. So these are all things that you don't really know, and depending on how you zone, it can change the dynamic. But I will say, we are more conservative with this proposed zoning than what we have now, because currently we're not regionalized zoned. We have to provide for every land use. So we've been able to forfeit a lot of those uses and alleviate some of the things that you guys over the years have done due diligence on, such as dispensaries. I mean, there's other communities in the River Central that did not have dispensaries, and under state law, if you have a pharmacy or retail use that sells drugs, that can be a dispensary. So you were proactive in it, but now you don't have to worry about some of those implications.
And I think the additional protection is that for many of the specific uses that we do provide for, and whether or not we have to or not, the new ordinance has substantially more conditions
Oh, yeah.
for many of those uses than with the current ordinance.
There is-
So the fallback is that even if somebody can do it, right, and we have to permit it, at least we have something, we're gonna have something in place that's gonna make it much more difficult, or to them to be compliant in ways they should be compliant.
Yeah,
You know,
we're
that
more
little
protective.
carcass- That little carcass thing for the warehouses, I think that's out now.
Yeah, that's not in there anymore. There are only 3 or 4 uses in our current ordinance that do not have specific criteria to be met. That does not mean they're not permitted by right, but there's specific criteria that the zoning officer should be looking at as a, hey, make sure you're double checking these specific things as a catch to alleviate some of those concerns over the years. So that is really it for zoning. I don't think there's anything really super changing on the zoning map. When it comes to that layout, the only thing that will change is obviously there will be no more planned residential under the current draft, and there will be no more conservation, and the township majority will be agricultural residential for zoning or AR. Other than that, nothing is expanding. There might be a little bit of change to the commercial districts of shrinking it, clarifying boundaries. there's some areas where we don't have a clear definition of why the commercial district's on a diagonal along a straight road. Like some of those things that just need to be clarified, so if somebody comes in, we're not seeing the challenges we saw on Airport Road with lucky strokes of, oh, well, the commercial line's kind of jagged, so we should be able to put commercial over on the other side of it too.
Well, some of them follow the old parcel lines, some of them follow specific offsets from the roads.
What I'm saying. They do that.
Anything else with zoning? So we, right now, based on your feedback, we'll be working on version number 3 of the draft for us as a staff. And we're looking at sometime starting the adoption process in June. It'll probably be the end of June.
Which is right on the time frame that you stated, beginning of the year.
I forget what I said, but
You said
halfway through.
You said mid-year.
Now, Hanover Township, Lehigh County has already started that, so you will see public notice signs all over their township. You'll see 5 in a row. They have opted under their comprehensive zoning that they were posting properties in the township. There is no requirement if you're doing a comprehensive overhaul of your ordinance to do postings. We can do that if the board is interested. I don't think it's necessary. I don't know how you would come up with a rhyme or reason to do that. And I probably would not post properties outside of the community on a public notice, because there's several of them that are not within the jurisdiction that they're posted in.
I'd just like to say,
As long as we're in.
when you see the final outcome, the product, you're gonna, this took a lot longer, it's more in depth, I know I said this before, than what I ever dreamed of. I'm learning a ton, but I must thank our professionals. You constantly throw out the ideas, and Brent and the planning commission during this process, I mean, it's very good discussion, a lot of good thoughts come out of it. I just think it's gonna be a great product, and I think it's gonna help the community.
A lot has changed since 1971 when the first ordinance, and 1984 when the second ordinance was adopted. But I will say, working with the team that we have, it's been the easiest process in the two communities that I've worked in with zoning overhauls. It has not been challenging, it's been productive, and I think we're gonna have a really good work product because of that, so.
I just wanna say thank you for getting it done. This, the previous,
spent a lot of time on it.
Brent's,
this was tried, what, 15 years ago, and it got shot down
And most
point
people
blank.
have to hire outside,
Yep.
companies to do it at a cost that is just prohibitive. Yeah, Brent spent an awful lot of time on this.
and he does, he makes a lot of calls, and people don't realize it, he makes a lot of calls after hours. And we have discussions.
Most of this ordinance has been drafted after hours, so if you
Yeah.
see a typo, it's because I'm probably sleep deprived doing the draft.
It's on the record, we don't need to blame.
You can blame me for the errors.
All right,
That is
anything
it.
else?
I have nothing else.
All right, correspondence, what do we have? Nothing. Public comment, who wants to talk about what? I want to talk about a meeting.
Sure, go ahead.
When?
Well, the person that I think is the one that wants to be the most involved is not here.
Too bad.
So
We're here.
I did ask,
Workshop meeting in July, how's that?
do you want to make it part of a public meeting, or, because I don't think we were looking at having it as a meeting where we would make any decisions or anything of that nature.
Correct.
It was more just a, hey, give us what you're working on.
Would you feel more comfortable with just the fact-finding meeting without the public, or?
However you'd like to do it. I'm open to the public.
I'm-
We did this.
I would prefer-
Fire department, it doesn't matter to us.
I would prefer a public.
That's fine. So,
I'm good,
July?
I'm good.
Works for me.
Workshop meeting in July.
So, okay.
Well, while we're on that roll,
Here we go.
have you set anything up as far as talking with residents of Jacksonville about the no parking?
No, I was planning on doing that at the workshop in July,
Finally.
but,
Packed house.
so when it comes to the parking study, I'm assuming the full board, because of the concerns that were raised at the meeting, would like to be a part of that meeting. I don't know how we want to go about that. What I was looking at doing is actually doing it in the field, having it there, whether we start at the park and walk our way over, drive our way over.
Do you have vests for all of us?
I have vests for everybody.
I'll even get you a hard hat if you wear it.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Poor people get
But just
bored.
so that if anybody from the community there has concerns or wants to be heard, they can be heard and we can see and kind of come up with a solution to various problems that are happening.
I like that.
So that was my thought.
That's a
The
good
advantage
idea, I
of
like
doing
that.
it there also is, you know, we might be able to firsthand see what people are either concerned about or obviously what the fire company and the public works people are concerned with, so.
I mean, we
And
can
it
do
doesn't
it,
have to be one of our meeting nights, that could be,
and that's what I wasn't sure if there was gonna be a decision out of it or if we just wanted to have a open night of, hey, the board's coming here, we wanna hear you out, we wanna give you our findings of what Jim's study had shown, what we're seeing, and coming up with ideas, not really making a decision. So we can do it at any night or time, preferably night, so that you can see when people are home in the evening what.
Yeah, there's a lot more available parking during the day.
Yeah, if you were looking for parking, I'd go during the day.
throw some, dates out to the entire board.
So,
Second half in July?
July,
Just throw them out,
okay,
we'll get something.
sounds good.
Are you gonna do that with Public Works and Fire down there?
You're invited, you can bring a fire truck.
Well, because you can engineer things all you want, and don't get me wrong, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. But actually taking a truck down there, maybe having them throw plow on it and bringing down.
Well, that's why
It's not a bad idea.
That's why I met with Public Works and the fire company. I met and we looked at that. I mean, I can tell you right now, I can show anything on a plan. I can't show you that you can get a fire truck through that village. It
We just
doesn't
have to
work.
tell the operators they're not actually going through, because they will hit something. But to demonstrate parking on both sides, we can do that.
That's fine. And I guess,
End up being a hostile.
to jump back to
environment.
the topics so we're not here at that July meeting all night, if you have topics that you would like to discuss for that meeting ahead of time, that, or else, for the fire department meeting. You know,
I just-
it's-
I mean,
I'm picturing as you and I sitting down and saying, how are things?
I think it's more like the presentations we've had over the years
Yeah.
of just the state of the department and what projects are going on in the future. I know we did one, I think it was like 3 years ago, because we did some of the capital improvements with the roof. Something very similar to that. Just going.
Manpower, how you're making out, what's going on, how's
Yeah,
life?
No problem. Like I said,
I still keep this right with me.
State of the
like I said,
union.
there's
Yeah,
so
there you
much-
go.
There's so much to that you don't want, I wouldn't want to pick that whole thing apart at that meeting.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to go into, we can have a little bit of the success of it and where you're at, but I don't think the meeting is going to be predominantly that. We can do a later meeting where we can go through and see if we want to go over the program, but it's more just the future planning for the township of what your needs are so that we can incorporate them with our own plans of where we're going 1 year, 5 year, 10 years out.
And we'll do another public one, like we did that one, we did the back-to-back. I think our residents are deserving of that, to realize where some of the funding has been going, you know, for showing us all how it has worked in some shapes and forms, with what we've been doing with the project.
No, bring that up. Say that we're, you're doing better than you were, and, Okay?
So I guess the other topic I'd bring up was, to the side is, We did discuss, we had conversation in reference to rental inspection, and then I know it was brought about that maybe we could look at commercial rental and commercial structure businesses for inspection. And I think the last thing that was laid off that we were gonna talk about is, for instance, something about adopting a fire code. That was back, I believe, in April.
So-
I know you, Roger, I guess you said anything that we would look to move forward with would happen next, it could possibly happen next year if we have our ducks in a row. And you're gonna be entering June next month, you're 6 months into this year already. So is it something we still walk down that road? Is it something we forget about?
No, my intent is, once I get through the final versions of the draft zoning ordinance, I'm gonna be working on all the ordinances that now have to be retweaked because zoning is changing. So we've talked about individual well standards, we've talked about the fire code, we've talked about, driveways, and there's some land development aspects that we're gonna have to go in. So the next meeting, I actually have a list of what needs to be changed and what ordinance to go through with the board of where you wanna go with it. But I think the fire code is something that will be done this year. Depending on how we go with the fire code and what the purpose of it is, if it's going to replace, or not replace, but supersede some provisions of the building code, we have to go through an L&I hearing process. So we just have to be cognizant of what we're adopting with it, that may take more time. So if we adopt just the inspection program and some of the other things for safety standards, we may not have to go through that hearing. But I just haven't had the time to look through what that provision is. But no, I think the fire code is definitely a this year project for adoption to start next year.
Okay. You good? Any other public comment? Oh, man, Georgianne's not here.
Guess we're stuck.
Lou, how about you?
Make a motion to conclude the meeting?
Okay, motion is made by Lou, seconded by Chris, right?
Yes, it is.
There you go.
Amen.
I can't. One last chance. Anything? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Go home.
So if we would've had a 2-1 vote, we have to stay.
Oh, you're a wise guy, aren't you?